This lecture is about what is curriculum. Curriculum is one of the most interesting areas, I think, in education. I personally, this is Professor Pang, enjoy it a lot because I think this is where we get to make a difference with the kids. What we present them, the information we choose, it makes a difference to whether they can get up when they're knocked down or they stay knocked down. I like this picture from the book Diversity and Equity in the Classroom. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up. And we want to be able to teach the children in many, many different ways how they always can get back up. Okay, so what is curriculum? Curriculum can be a formal course of study, like, you're taking this class. It can be formal prescribed by the state or federal authorities, but it also can be the practices and implementation of what we do as teachers, what we create, the material, the instructional strategies, the assessment, standards, all of that can be part of curriculum too. So curriculum is a pretty broad area. Well, what is the purposes of curriculum? The ultimate purpose is to improve the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of human beings, isn't it? Isn't that why we teach? And the intent is to enhance one's ability to find meaning in one's life. Sometimes I don't see the forest from the trees. I'm always so focused on what I'm going to be teaching, the specific things and questions and activities I'm going to do in a lesson, that I forget to look at the whole broad view of education. So Ralph Tyler, a curriculum theorist in the 70s and 60s, he asked us to think about these questions. What educational purposes should the school seek to attain? What should the schools be doing? And what experience can we as teachers provide towards these purposes? And how can the educational experiences be organized? That's all about lesson planning, unit planning, and course development. And how can we determine whether these purposes are being attained? And that's where the assessment comes in, as you know. I want to go to now some kind of broad things. So we have aims, goals, and objectives in schools. So at the top of this chart, you see that there are purposes of education. And we can see that it starts with the educational theoretical framework or societal forces. Then it goes to the aims. Those are usually national goals. Then it would go to the school goals, and then we go to the district or school level and individual teacher level of objectives. So the aims are generally broad guidelines, as I said, on national levels. An example is to prepare students for democracy. That's pretty broad, don't you think? I don't know exactly what that means. It means to make them think. I would make them, hopefully the kids will be able to read and compute and use digital devices and so forth like that. Now, the major goals of schools the major goals of schools are purposes. It could be something like students master basic skills and fundamental processes like, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I hope they learn how to do their penmanship too. The students should also be able to develop vocational and career skills. Maybe they'll be a chef. Maybe they will be a teacher. Maybe they will be a police officer. Maybe they will be a counselor. There's just a lot of options now. Maybe they'll be a computer specialist. And then they need to develop their intellect, right? They need to be able to think and analyze and not just regurgitate, but to create and evaluate. Then they also need to know how to develop interpersonal relationship with other people, and that leads us to citizenship skills, those skills of collaboration, working for the common goal, working at how to think. Then, of course, as John Goodlad, one of our most famous educators, said, we should be involved in moral and ethical character. We do that when we ask children what is fair and if they can decide on what is fair in various situations, like who should take out the ball at recess and why. Here are some other major goals of American schools. Learning the values of society and how these values resulted in strengthening the individual. We want students to value education. We want students to value the freedoms they have. And then schools help to develop autonomous or independent individuals who can deal with the demands of society and the world. This is very difficult. It's not easy to be independent and to be a problem solver and figure out how to deal with life every day. And then encourage and guide students to develop their creativity and aesthetic perception, which is important to their self-realization, the development of the individual so they can contribute to society as they grow older. So the goals of schooling could be district level, could be school level, could be priorities of a school team. Maybe you're part of the math team or you're part of the science team. And a priority might be to participate in social and political life of the community. Maybe the students help with a local election. Then it goes down to objectives. We have instructional objectives, but we also have standards, subject area objectives, lesson plan, unit plan objectives, and lesson plan objectives. Those are the instructional objectives that we work with specifically to make sure that our kids do well. So we know exactly what we're teaching. But by the end of this lesson, the students will be able to identify all the words in this passage that end in ing or whatever. Now, there are important questions in curriculum for teachers. They should be asking themselves, what knowledge should be taught? And whose knowledge should be taught? Is it the students' knowledge that they know or they want to know? So who should choose that knowledge? Should it be the students? Should it be you? Should it be the state? Should it be organizations? And who benefits from the knowledge being taught? If we only learn about the way, let's just say the way let's say we just choose the knowledge of Thanksgiving from the view of the Pilgrims, then we would never know what the Wampanoag people felt where the Pilgrims landed and they took food from the graves of the Wampanoags. Though they were starving, they had not any more food left on their ships, and it was a terrible time for them too. But what would Wampanoags think when the Indians went to their grave and found that the food that they had left there for the spirits of the ancestors were gone? Do you see what happens when we choose only to tell a certain viewpoint, one group's viewpoint, and not multiple perspectives? So it's important to think of what knowledge are we teaching and why. So why are we teaching? Sometimes I think we're just teaching so I can, make sure that the kids know the different views of Dr. King or the Wampanoags, or they understand that the first Thanksgiving is not the way they were taught when they were in kindergarten. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we teaching it? Hopefully we're teaching the forest, not just the little tiny trees. We're just not just providing fertilizer for the child, but we're not just teaching about a certain skill either, but we're including that skill in a broad look at life. So think about this. How would you rank the goals of schooling? Do you think the three top goals of schooling are, and why? Is it intellectual development? Is it to be a good citizen? Is it to be able to work with other people? What did you think are the most important goals of schooling? This is very important. As a teacher, you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So hopefully you think about these things and think of the top three goals you see for schooling.